let me just speak of our own dynamics thing.
Right.
The approach at least we're taking is, I think the notion that business applications exist, that's probably where they'll all collapse, right, in the agent era. Because if you think about it, right, they are essentially CRUD databases with a bunch of business logic. The business logic is all going to these agents. And these agents are going to be multi-repo CRUD, right? So they're not going to discriminate between what the backend is. They're going to update multiple databases, and all the logic will be in the AI tier, so to speak. And once the AI tier becomes the place where all the logic is, then people will start replacing the backends.
Welcome to the first episode of Flamecast. In 2011, Mark Andreessen said, "Software is hitting to work." For more than a decade, he was right. Software as a service companies became the most efficient money printing machine in history. But today, a new force is emerging, and this time, software is the one on the menu. Today, we will explore how artificial intelligence is not an extra feature for software. It is a disruptive force that threatens to tear down the walls that made these companies so wealthy. Chapter 1. The Origin, the Rise of the SaaS Empire. To understand where we are going, we must first remember where we came from. In the 90s, buying software was a physical event. If you wanted your company to be productive, you had to buy a box, insert a disk, and pray that the installation wouldn't crash your system. It was expensive, it was static, and above all, it was difficult to update. But in 1999, something changed. A former Oracle executive named Mark Benioff decided that software shouldn't be a product, but a service. That's how Salesforce was born. The idea was radical. Don't install anything, just open your browser and pay a monthly subscription. Benioff wasn't just selling a sales tool, he was inventing SaaS. The era of digital toll had begun. Why did SaaS become the most completed business model in history? For three fundamental reasons that made it look literally like a money printing machine. First, recurring revenue. Instead of convincing you to buy an update every 3 years, software companies secure a predictable monthly cash flow. It's every investor's dream. Money coming in every month, on rain or shine. Second, zero marginal cost. Once Salesforce or Microsoft develops the code, selling it to one customer costs almost the same as selling it to a million. Every new user is practically pure profit. And third, perhaps more importantly, the lock-in effect or retention. Once a company uploads all its data, its processes, and its employee training to a platform, the cost of living is so high that they prefer to keep paying the subscription forever. Software became the nervous system of every company. Look at the case of Adobe. In 2013, they made the riskiest decision in their history. They stopped selling Photoshop in $1,000 boxes to charge $20 a month. Wall Street panicked, but the result was a profit explosion that multiplied the company value tenfold in a decade. Or think about Shopify. They don't just sell software, they sell the right to exist in the internet for millions of merchants. By simplifying something that previously required a team of engineers, they became indispensable. For 20 years, the success of these companies was based on a universal truth. Software was hard to build. You need armies of programmers, years of development, a multi-million-dollar budget to create a competitive barrier, a moat, that no one could jump over. Software was king because technical talent was scarce. But what happened when the scarcity disappears? What happened when code stops being a valuable asset and becomes something almost free? That is the exact moment when the SaaS dream begins to turn into nightmare. Chapter 2. The Golden Age. Insane Valuations. There was a decade, roughly between 2011 and 2021, where if you put the word SaaS in your business presentation, investors would throw money out of you almost blindly. It was the era of cheap money and blind faith on infinite growth. To understand this golden age, you have to understand a key economic concept: zero interest rates. With central banks giving away money, large investment funds didn't want boring bonds. They wanted explosive growth, and nothing grew like software. In this world, it didn't matter if your company lost $100 million a year as long as your subscription revenue went up by 40% annually. A sacred metric emerged, the rule of 40. If your revenue growth plus your profit margins added up to more than 40, you were a Wall Street superstar. This allowed companies like Slack, Uber, or Twilio to be valued at billions of dollars before they even know what it was like to have a single year of real earnings. The peak of this fever arrived in September 2020. Snowflake, a cloud data storage company, went public. On its first trading day, its value doubled to $70 billion. Its revenue, barely $400 million. it was valued at more than 170 times its sales. To put that into perspective, for an investor to recover their money based only on the sales at that time, they would have had to wait nearly 2 centuries. The 2020 pandemic was the final shot of adrenaline. Suddenly, the entire world depended on these tools to survive. Zoom went from being just a niche tool to becoming a verb. Its market value surpassed that of the entire airlines, with fleets and hundreds of planes. By the end of 2021, the valuations of most SaaS companies reached their ceiling. It seemed like software was invincible. The moats we mentioned, based on the difficulty of programming and customer retention, looked like steel walls that no one could tear down. Silicon Valley executives felt untouchable. They believed their competitive advantage would last for decades. What they didn't see coming was that the very same technology they used to scale was about to turn against them. Code was about to stop being a barrier and start becoming a cheap commodity. Chapter 3. The Threat of AI, the Great Disruption. November 2022. The launch of ChatGPT was not just a technological magic trick. It was the first shot in a war that traditional software was not prepared to fight. For 2 decades, SaaS companies protected themselves behind defensive moats. But artificial intelligence isn't coming to jump over the moat. It's coming to dry up the water and tear down the walls. The first threat is the erosion of the barrier to entry. Previously, if you wanted to compete with a giant like HubSpot, you needed 50 senior engineers and 2 years of development. Today, AI promises that a team of 3 people armed with AI agents can replicate 80% of the core function of that software in a matter of weeks. When code is no longer difficult to write, the value of owning the software plummets. Software becomes a commodity, a basic product like rice and electricity. The second threat is what we call the end of the interface. Think about it. How much of today's software is just a pretty face on top of a database? You pay for clicks, menus, and forms. But in the world of AI agents, you no longer want to navigate 15 minutes to generate a report. You just want to say, analyze my cells and send me a report. If the AI can query the data directly, why do you need to keep paying for a subscription for that intermediate interface? Hundreds of SaaS companies that are worth millions today are in reality simple wrappers for a technology that AI will soon make invisible. That's what Satyanadella meant in the interview clip at the beginning of this video. And here we come to the most painful threat for Wall Street, the collapse of the pay-per-seat model. Almost all SaaS is sold per user. If you have 100 employees, you pay for 100 licenses. But what happens when AI allows 10 people to do the work of 100? It's already happening. Companies like Klarna has started canceling million-dollar contracts with software giants. They've discovered it is cheaper and more efficient to build their own internal tools with AI than to keep paying a perpetual digital rent. If AI reduces the need of humans seated in front of a screen, the business model that made rich Salesforce simply bleeds out. Since the 2021 peak, SaaS valuations have dropped from over 20 times sales to the current levels of 2 times to 6 times. Stock drawdowns have reached between 40 and 80% since the release of Cloud's Opus 4.6 model in February 2026. We're moving from selling tools for work to selling work results. Before, you paid for the hammer, the software. Now, AI delivers the finished house. And companies that don't know how to move from the hammer to the house will be left with a product that no one wants to buy. Chapter 4. What future scenarios do we have for software companies? We are at a historic crossroad. The business model that defined the last 2 decades is mutating. But where's it heading? There isn't just one answer, but rather 3 scenarios that will determine who the next owners of the digital economy will be. The pessimistic scenario, total commoditization. In this world, software becomes so easy to create that its perceived value drops to nearly zero. Companies stop buying external solutions and start using their own AI models to build custom internal tools. Why pay $50 a month for a HR software if your internal AI can build you a better one in one single afternoon? These scenarios would see a massive collapse of mid-tier SaaS companies, those without unique data, and brutal deflation across the tech sector. Here, the giants win. Microsoft, Adobe, or Salesforce can use their immense cash reserves to buy out or to crush any innovation.
As we speak, I think we are seeing pretty high rates of wins on Dynamics backends and the agent use. And we are going to go pretty aggressively and try and collapse it all, right? Whether it's in customer service.
Software doesn't die, but it becomes heavy. Subscriptions rise in price because they now include AI credits. But growth stagnates because there's no more room for new players. Software becomes a public utility like water or gas, necessary, but boring and controlled by few. Finally, the optimistic scenario, the hyper SaaS era. This is the most fascinating one. AI allows software to resolve problems that were previously unprogrammable. We are talking about software that autonomously manages country logistics, designs drugs in real time, or personalized education for every child in the planet. SaaS is no longer about managing data, but about generating solutions. In this scenario, the economic pie doesn't just get divided, it becomes 10 times higher. Conclusion: value beyond the code. So what is the lesson of all of this? For years, we thought a tech company's value lay in the lines of code. We were wrong. Code was just a container. The real value has always been in two things that AI, for now, cannot manufacture out of thin air: proprietary data and trust. The companies that survive won't be the ones with the best algorithm, but those with the most exclusive data that no one else can train on, and those that customers trust to handle their deepest secrets. Software isn't dying. It's losing its mystique. It's becoming invisible. In that process, it forces us to ask the uncomfortable questions. If a machine can't do the work, what value do we bring? The answer to that question won't be given by an AI. It will be given by us. That's all for today. I'm Alex Ben, and you've been watching Dreamcast. See you soon in the next episode.